Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 10th episode of the Chalk Talk podcast presented to you by CatWizard.io. Couldn't be more excited to be bringing you our 10th episode here. Joining me is our co-host, Panz. How we doing, buddy?
Doing really well. Once again, happy to be here. Extremely excited for a 10th episode already. Can't believe it. But yes, as always, excited to talk news around the NHL and other big hockey leagues in the world. So I'll kick it back over to you, buddy.
Oh, couldn't have said it better myself, brother. Tons of action around the hockey world this past week, really week and a half or so since we've last posted a pod. We want to go through some news. There's quite a few milestones, and we wanted to go through some winners and losers of the week. Wanted to kind of do a brief overview of what we thought the first month of hockey looked like, and we'll kind of explain how we, our specific takes in that. There's a lot of fun happening since the start of the season here. We're glad that you've been with us the whole entire way. And of course, as the season progresses and time goes on and more updates come, we have a lot of exciting things coming with that. So let's kind of kick it off right into the news segment. There's been a few big pieces. One thing I wanted to kick over to you. You and I have been talking about this for quite some time. The NCAA and CHL bridge deal. So I'll just turn it over to you if you want to break this down a little bit and explain a little bit to our viewers what that means, as well as really what that could have, implications down the line and what that means for the future of hockey.
So basically, what it was is that NCAA is allowing quote unquote professional athletes to play NCAA games. And we're not talking about big, long standing professional career type of athletes. We're talking about young players who are getting paid to play lower levels of hockey. That is classified as pro due to them getting paid like the CHL or even some European pro leagues that some young guys are able to get in but still try to play college hockey afterwards. I can't remember exact names, but I know there were a couple of suspensions up in the Northeast in the NCAA last season when it came to a couple of European guys playing just a handful of pro games overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is extremely exciting news for the hockey community as a whole. I think this is going to help grow the NCAA hockey with more talent and a lot more diversity. So I'm very excited. I think this is also going to lead to a lot more Americans playing in the CHL now that there's no ramifications towards college hockey. So I'm very excited for this move and even more excited to see what's to come.
Yeah, I feel like this is hell of a good news to be dropped in the hockey world. Basically, before this was agreed upon, any young player who is going into the conversation to be drafted, right? They come out of high school. They had a few options. They had options to go up to Canada and play in the World Juniors, or oftentimes that next option for them was to go into the NCAA or the USHL and US leagues. There was a problem though with crisscrossing. You couldn't play in both because of just the payments, the professional payment that you're getting from the CHL. So you didn't see players do both because of the NIL situation with the NCAA. I think those barriers were knocked down, so to say, and those conversations were finally had to make sense. If college players are allowed to make money from an NIL stance, how come we're strict against players coming from the CHL who made money to play in the NCAA? So the mindset shifted, and I like you could be more excited, right? We know now. I mean, we talked about it, man. Like there's more people in the pipeline, in the youth hockey pipeline coming up that are not only great but incredibly skilled, that are willing, or I should say eligible to be drafted in the coming 2, 3, 4, 5 years, really more so than there have been in the past. The pool of talent is incredible. So by giving more opportunities, it's going to bolster the NCAA. It's going to give players a better choice and feel like them and their parents aren't pigeonholed to a specific avenue to explore, because everyone's route to the NHL can be a little different. Back before this, it was known that, the NCAA, you'd be one of few to be drafted out of the NCAA, or one that would be as respected as someone who did really well up in Canada in the junior system. Well, now this might be a level playing field. If not, NCAA might take a step up as being one of those top tier leagues that most players want to go to, as they see like the best road to the NHL. So I'm very excited. I'm also excited how this plays into coaching. If there's coaching shifts from the CHL down into the NCAA as well with this situation, and obviously all the way up to the NHL and National League, how that might affect things moving forward. But, anyways, really great news. I think everyone who saw this and covered this from a media stance was like excited about it. There's nothing not to be excited about. So we'll definitely be following that. Now, another piece of news is more not really news. It was kind of like a drama from a media stance. Last week, Barry Trotz was talking to an interviewer, and unfortunately, they've not been very successful as of late in Nashville. And not sure if this was a joke. Not sure if this was really something to just light a fire under the butts of everyone in that locker room. I think that's what it was. But Barry Trotz made a statement that, if things don't turn around quickly, they're going to start their rebuild. Um, to me, as a GM, I don't think he meant that. I genuinely don't. I don't think you can do what you did this offseason and bring in all these massive pieces and actually, ditch that entire effort 6 months, 10 months down the line from that decision. The other side of me thinks, like, what else can they do to light a spark under this team? They're in a great spot. They have a lot of time left. I know the whole Thanksgiving time frame is a great understanding of the scope of someone's season, but we've seen it before. This team is certainly of that caliber to do it again, where they can turn their season around even after Thanksgiving and potentially get to the playoffs and be one of those teams that are feared. Not only just a playoff team, but one of those teams that's really tough to play against. The other thing to it, I don't know if you have anything to add here, buddy, but like to me, it's like Stammer and Marchessault. They're brand new. They're getting used to it. Stammer's on a power play that he's at this point needs to be acclimated, but he was getting passed to by Hedman and Kucherov his whole career. Like, yeah, he's got great talent passing it to him, but I think it's just getting used to exactly that spot on the ice that they're used to, and he seems to be letting them rip. But I want to turn it over to you because I'm sure you have a few thoughts to share here. What a funny situation.
Yeah, and I actually have a little bit of a different outlook on the situation.
Ooh.
In my perspective, I actually think Barry Trotz was just being brutally honest. Knowing where his team is at, very veteran heavy team. Like you said, brought in some big signings in free agency. Not really looking like they're working out at the moment. And I think he's just being honest of where he sees his team is at. If this team's not able to show that they're able to do it, he's going to make some changes until he finds that team.
Okay. So I'm gonna turn it back to you because, man, I would love some spice out there in the Central Division. Shuffle some things up. I was also bullish on a lot of these players that were going out there. What do you do if you're Barry Trotz and Thanksgiving rolls around? We'll say end of November, early December comes around. Your team has not done a single bit better than what you wanted them to do. Basically, they're in the same spot. As a GM, armchair GM, what are you doing, Pans, to make this situation better?
You sell what's most valuable, what won't be there in a few years, and sadly, that's the new guys with the big contracts, Marchessault and Stamkos. I think those would be the two key pieces to move that would get you a big return. A lot of good teams that would like to improve offensively would pay a hefty fee for either one of those guys either one of those solid vets on their team. Um, so yeah, I see where Trotz is coming from, and honestly, I think this is smart of him as a GM to just see where he's at and really want to make this Preds organization as great as possible for as long as possible.
Hmm. Yeah, it's tough. It's a really tough situation with the re-signings of Soros over the offseason, Stamkos, Marcia. So we know the O'Reilly signing for another few years. I mean, they have value. I think it's what you said. Now, if I was in that situation, like Evangelista still needs to be signed this offseason, but he's got value. I'd be looking at some of the youth, right? I don't think Stammer and Marcia Show are the issues. They're not playing in and helping the situation much right now. Of course, we saw Stamkos' his stat line. And I know Ryan O'Reilly, like the other night, just was interviewed and said, like, that was one of my worst games ever. Um, you need your vets buzzing. You need your top players and the most expensive players on your roster buzzing. But from a rebuild stance, if he's starting to rebuild, maybe getting those draft picks or trying to keep those older guys, but sell the younger guys to get something to build around. I don't know. My thought would be immediately it goes to the Tomasino, the Evangelistas, and the Novaks on that roster. Those are the three names that, although they might be one of the better players on that roster this year right now to start, they got value and they're going to bring more value. And it might be easier, I should say, to offload than an $8 million contract for 4 years with Stammer, who's honestly the only team who might pay him that is Tampa because, well, they know, we might have messed up by letting him go, or that was just a little maybe high for them. I don't know. It's a really tough decision to make. I think this will be a fun one to watch because Barry Trotz, since he's gotten to Nashville as a GM, he's been no joke. He walks the walk,
Yeah.
and he's a fun leader in the NHL to watch. Whether it was when he was playing, when he was coaching, and winning the cup with the Caps, and then his long tenure at, behind the bench there with Nashville, and then now GM. Now I think the question also begs is like, what's next? Is it the players or is it Andrew Brunette getting the boot? Hard to say. It really is. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen greatness out of him, Andrew Brunette. I don't know from a full head coach position where he stands there, but as an assistant coach, a power play unit coach for the Devils, and all he's done behind the bench in multiple aspects. I mean, that's an impactful player behind your bench, no doubt. But is he the guy to lead that locker room? Who knows? So we'll be following it. We did have a trade piece of news that we definitely want to share. We're going to give our grades. And there's a lot to kind of break down about it, too. And I'm sure everyone's heard by now because we're covering it about a day and a half later. But the Pittsburgh Penguins, have traded Lars Eller to the Washington Capitals for a third round pick in 2027 and a fifth round pick in this upcoming draft. So before I turn it over to you, I just see this as the snowball that has been created and starting down the hill. I think there's a lot to be said about the Pittsburgh Penguins situation, Dubas's situation, but I'm curious, what would you grade this, and what are your kind of curious thoughts about where this is heading out there in Pittsburgh?
So quite honestly, this is a tough trade to grade. Um, Honestly, I'm just gonna go with an eight even. I think it's a bit early for Pittsburgh to be trading a guy like Eller away. Um, yeah, I know the Penguins are losing, but I don't think a veteran guy like Lars Eller was part of the problem. I do think this was a nice, a good return. Um, Honestly, a little bit heavy for a guy like Lars Eller, but the Caps really like him. He's played most of his career in Washington, so I think the Capitals were willing to pay a little bit more to get the guy that they like. But I'm going to go with an eight even. Doesn't break the bank for anyone, but good for Dubas to get some picks back for a veteran guy who will most likely not fetch that return again if he is traded.
Yeah, I actually agree completely with what you were saying. I don't think he was by any means the issue. Um, I like your grade. I'm gonna go a little under. I'm giving it a 7.5, and there's reason behind it. And I get why the Washington Capitals did this. Right now, Washington's in a better situation than I think most expected. They have had Lars Eller. They've seen his play. And let's be real, a lot of people in Washington understand how much of an impact he and like Smith Pelly had during their playoff runs where they were doing really well. Specifically, Lars Eller that year that they won the cup, he was very crucial. You don't win without those third line guys really stepping up. And don't get me wrong, he's got great hockey in him, but I don't think he's worth a third and a fifth. I think he normally goes a fourth or a fifth alone, and that's it. Like I don't think you're throwing two in there, and that's for any other market that's bringing him in. He's a 35-year-old guy. This season with the Penguins, he's got 4 goals and 3 assists in 17 games, 7 points in 17 games. To me, this was more of like for the Capitals. I don't think they're pissed that they're parting ways with the third, but I'm grading it lower because to me, I see a Capitals organization that, well, they are better off than the Penguins. So they don't need that third, but I do see, that third being a potentially really skilled player. Now, their AHL team, the Hershey Bears, have won the Calder Trophy 2 years in a row. They've been buzzing. I think they've like won a ton in the last like 5 to 6. They're actually dominant down there in the A, and I get that their system's been strong. What they did this offseason really makes that roster less of a, I don't know, are they at the end of the road, and more of like oh shit, this road's continuing. And even when Ovi's long gone, this team isn't a bad team. Whereas you flip the switch, you turn to that division rival up there in Pittsburgh, and I mean, holy cow, there Dubas is all over the place right now with what he has to make decision wise to get this roster back. Apparently, the rumor is he came out and said everyone on the roster other than Crosby is available. Not sure if this is 100% factual. If he actually came out and said that to any media outlet or any GM, but to me, they're a team that has little to no system, to bring up young, talented players. Aside from like Rucker McGroarty and maybe a few other sprinkled in there, you have a very old roster, very old, very expensive roster. So yes, getting rid of a 35-year-old and bringing in a third rounder and fifth rounder. I believe the Pittsburgh Penguins won this. I believe Dubas needs as many draft picks as he can get, and that's about as good of a return as he's probably going to get. So I don't think it's beneficial for the Capitals as much, but who knows? Come playoff time when these Capitals are still buzzing, or if they're in that great position that they seem to look to be at right now, I mean that's exactly what they need. That third line, fourth line guy like Lars Eller was 4 or 5 years ago for them. It's just a lot to ask when you're at 35. We talk about the skill at the age of 35 and how few can play to the top echelon, impactful players um, with that age. So, um, really, really interesting. 7.5, and you're 8. We'll be following this one. I think all eyes will be on Lars Eller, and I think also with Dubas. Like I think a lot of different media attention is going to be heading his way, if not already, to see what the hell's going on. I believe, as I mentioned, this is the first of many dominoes to fall. I have a feeling that big four will have to be split up. Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Carlson. I, Even if you kept all four, Marcus Peterson's probably your most valuable ad or the most valuable piece to to get return from because he's your probably solidified number 4, if not like number 5 defenseman. He's making just over 4 mil. He's like affordable and his impact is good to get a return. You have to sell Letang, you have to sell Carlson, or you have to sell Malkin. It's less of a this makes more sense and this brings value and more of like how can we retain some of that cost and make it balanced for the team we're selling them to. I think these older assets are great, but for the cost that they're bringing, it can really hurt their trade likelihood or their trade value. So Dubas certainly has his hands full. Um, But anyways, let's move into some of the winners of the week. I'll cover I'll cover two here, and then I'll turn it over to you. Um, but I mentioned it briefly. The Capitals are absolutely crushing it. Sorry, this is for the first month, not the first week or the last week. This is overall the first month of play. Um, the Caps started out at an 8-2 record in the first month of hockey. To me, that was probably 3 wins to 4 wins more than I had them. And they are not only buzzing on all cylinders, Ovi's crushing it. Their goaltenders are standing on their heads. Their coaching looks fluid and more of a system from a cohesive team environment than I think we've seen it all the way back to when Trotz and potentially before Trotz was coach there. I see McMichael crushing it. Dylan Strome, who's got an assist per game and then some. Tom Wilson had a hell of a start too. That team is all guns a blazing. I've been to about 5 Caps games this season already. I know they're playing Toronto Maple Leafs tonight, November 13th. But this team is scary out in the East, and I don't think people had them as scary coming into the year, but they better watch out. And then the other team I wanted to cover in this for the first month of play were the Minnesota Wild. I know you might have something to add, so I'll turn it over to you. But they started at 8-1-2 in their first month. Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov has looked like he's better than anyone ever really would put into words. Everyone said he's great, but this guy is like better than great. Like he's showing to be one of the best in the league, if not top 5. And you and I have been talking about his skill and how he's there, but this might be that year where he proves everyone really what an impactful player he can be from a 200-foot stance. But I'll turn it over to you. I know you're a big fan of Matt Boldy. Who the hell isn't? He's a stud. But anything you'd add on the Caps, Wild, or any other teams in that first month?
No, I thought you covered it pretty well. Caps, a little bit unexpected, but absolutely love to see that from Washington. Same goes for Minnesota. A little unexpected, a little more expected than Washington, but love to see guys like Faber, Boldy, Kaprizov, Gustafson all playing extremely well in Minnesota. So great first month in October. Hope they can keep that going. But to add one more team for top winners of the month, arguably the best team in the NHL still to this moment, the Winnipeg Jets going 9-1 in the month, and just absolutely incredible hockey up there in Winnipeg. Hellebuck once again looking for a Vezina run. He's currently letting in less than 2 goals a game on average. Save percentage up above 93%. Kyle Connor producing extremely well to start. Shifley, Ehlers, and I think one of the big differences for the Jets and why they're winning so much right now is they're getting more production out of the back end from guys like Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk, who are each just over a point per game at this moment. Um, Great play from the Jets overall. You also have some younger guys stepping into some bigger, better roles in Gabe Velarde and Cole Perfetti. So I think this is just the Jets as a whole taking a step forward, each and every guy out there. Um,
They're
Great
15
play
and
from
1.
just about every single player on that roster. So fantastic start for the Jets.
Yeah.
But that was our 3 winners of the month. And I'm going to start out for the top losers of the month and then kick it back over to you. But the first loser of the month, I think you and I have both talked about a decent bit here. The Nashville Predators. And them being top loser of the month is most likely a reason why Barry Trotz is saying, hey, either get it going or we're going to get some new guys in here.
Mm-hmm.
The Predators started out 4-7-1 in the month of October, and that's not at all what head coach Andrew Brunette and GM Barry Trotz were hoping for. They spent a lot of money this offseason, And sadly, the guys they spent it on in Marchessault, Stamkos, and Shea are not really mixing as well or producing as much as was hoped for. So, hoping the Predators are able to turn it around. Uh, don't know. Maybe this is going to end up being a coaching change first to see if a new coach is able to bring this group together before, as Trot said, possibly start moving on from guys, trying to bring in other ones to make the right fit. But yeah, really tough month of October for the Nashville Predators. Really
Hmm.
hope they're able to turn it around in November.
Yeah, no, they're definitely deserving of that. Right now, they're sitting at, and this again, this is after the first month, but they're still sitting at 12 points. They're tied for the last place in the league right now with the Canadians, 5-9-2 record. Um, I'm gonna be honest, that team was nobody had them at last. There's no way anyone predicted they'd be last coming out the gates this way. Um, it will be interesting. Now another team, you know, another team that is definitely deserving of loser of the first month, and I was very bullish on them, and it hurts for me to say because they're my team growing up. Is the Chicago Blackhawks 3-9-1 to start their season? Although many of those 9 games they were in it and they barely lost it, an L is an L. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you lost by five, last 5 seconds you missed an empty net, or you dominated. Sorry, last minute you missed, or you dominated in time with possession and shots, but you still it's a loss. A loss is a loss. 3-9-1 is really tough for a team that did a lot this offseason. I know Davidson out there in Chicago has been kind of moving on with this rebuild of like, okay, it's now the first step up the pyramid. Like we got Bedard, we got the young studs in the last few drafts. Yes, we have 2 first-rounders this draft, but now we want to build the roster around these young guys. Now, don't get me wrong, Rockford's looking great, and the players out there are really cohesive, right? The Nazars, their Korchinskis, the young players in their system look as good as you can really ask them to be in this level of play, and how the product of the league or the team is in Chicago. I mean, you can't really ask them to be buzzing and a team lose like this, but they're growing and they're gonna be great stars in the league. It's just frustrating because the Hawks were in so many games, and like you said with the Preds, I think Richardson's due. I think a coaching situation is needed, a coaching change. I've heard rumors about a lot of different people. Um, actually, the guy out in Edmonton who left midseason last year, Scott or Tom McClellan. We know Coach Q's on the market, but I don't think he's going back to Chicago. And a number of others are out there. And I'm not saying the coaching is the issue because that team still is a little far away from being a scary juggernaut of a team. But let's be honest, you're in a tough division. You better not, if they finish out this year as a meh team, everyone under them in the standings is expected to be under them, for the exception of the Preds. You have the Sharks, you have Anaheim, you have Columbus, and Montreal. All 4 of those teams are going through a rebuild. They by no means were expected to be stud teams this year. Again, excluding Preds out of this. The Blackhawks were supposed to make a step up in their game, not a quarter step, which is what I'm seeing right now. And I would like to see that change. And until that does, they're going to be on our losers of the week. And then I know we've talked about this team a lot. I love this team. I love the GM. The last team rounding out our losers of the first month of the league, or the year, I should say, would be the Detroit Red Wings. Now, don't get me wrong, there are other teams that are underperforming their expectations. We can talk about the Penguins. We can certainly talk about your Boston Bruins. We can talk about out the gate with Buffalo Sabres. We can talk about Utah being a winner out the gate. We can talk about Edmonton struggling right out the gate and then picking it up, or the Maple Leafs struggling in the power play, picking it up. But when I look at a team who is kind of treading water in a system, the Iser plan that we talked about, that is supposed to be, I mean, let's be real, they're supposed to be in the playoffs right now. Like, they are not There's no longer, oh, we're going to rebuild. It's, hey, you brought in Patrick Kane because he wanted to play with DeBrincat and win a cup. He didn't go because he just wanted to play there. He wanted to go to a team that's going to win the cup. He believed in the Iser plan. I love Dylan Larkin. He looks faster and stronger than he really ever has. But the Lucas Raymond not putting the puck in the net as much, I think, is hurting this season. I like we talked about their young blue line. Um, I mean, Pelika, Edvidson, and Sider is a trio that's scary. Um, but Pelika and Sider and Edvinson can't be the only top performers on this team. Talbot's not looking bad. I think just from a team stance, they're just not looking strong. When you look at their shots for, um, they're just they're it's just not there. Their goals for is 34, and it's just lower than everyone else from a goals for stance. They are second, if not worst, in the league. They are second worst in the league for goals for. Now again, they have 2 games less played, but it's not even close from them to number 3. So like they're not putting the puck in the net the way they need, and that goes to the Patrick Kanes. That even can be leaned on the Velenos, the Raymonds, of course, the DeBrinkets. All of these players, like not that they're playing poorly, but that half step up can really make a difference. And to me, again, if they don't make the playoffs, they're sitting at 26th right now in their conference. They are, let me double check. They're 14th in the, oh geez, in the East, and from a division stance, they are sitting right at the bottom with the Canadians there, as 7th in the Atlantic, but the Canadians are right there behind. Like if they don't change, if they're not getting to the playoffs this season, I don't think it's their coaching. I think their coaching changed last season, and I don't think Lalonde is their answer. But I don't think it's the coaching necessarily. Maybe that's the scapegoat. But I think Iserman, his days are numbered in Detroit if he doesn't turn things around here. And that really hurts to say because Iserman was not only a force and a fun player to watch, but a really, really decisive and exciting strategic GM to watch as he cooked in Tampa and now what he's done out in Detroit. Um, but I know there's probably a number of other teams that we could throw in for both the winners and losers of the week or month, I should say. But these were just some teams that kind of stuck out to us three, especially Panz and I, as we've been watching a lot of hockey, and the eye test is a lot too. Results is one thing, but watching on either live or on TV gives you a sense of how the team's cohesiveness is, how they gel, how they transition into the zone. You don't get that in stats, right? But how teams play, how teams pass the puck, how they cycle, how defensively they look really brings together a whole kind of picture of what that team's play is like. And on top of the results statistically that we're seeing, the eye test wasn't really proven what it should for these teams. So, moving on, I'll pass it over to you. We're going to go through some of the top performers of the first month, starting with goals, and we'll go down the line of like assists and points and otherwise. But let's start off with goals. We'll have you start out there, bud.
So some great performances to start out the year, and top performers for first month of play in the goal category are 2 names that I don't think many people would guess. The one name is maybe a few people would guess, but one of these names not expected whatsoever. Leading the league in goals to start out in the month of October, we have Cole Caulfield with the Montreal Canadiens scoring 10 goals, and we also have Nico Hischier, the captain of the New Jersey Devils, scoring 10. Now, I think this is absolutely wonderful for both teams and both guys as they are trying to, as the Devils have fully taken that turn out of the rebuild and are competing again. But this is a great sign for the Canadians as they're looking to make those final steps to finally be out of this rebuild. But absolutely great play from the both of them. I think this was quite unexpected through the first month, but Nico Hischier really carrying this Devils team. looking great out there. He's already put up 17 points on the season. I think this might be the first time in his career he's outpacing himself in goals than assists. But very excited for Hischier and Caulfield. Excited to see what they're both able to put up as their final total for goals. But with Hischier capping out at 31 just a couple seasons ago, I think he'll definitely be able to break that and possibly be able to hit 40. So excited to see those two guys. Anybody else I missed for goals for the first month of play?
Yeah, no, that good call outs for sure. Caulfield and Hischier look great. The only two I would probably throw in there are Kyle Connor and Kucherov. They both got 9 goals each in their first in October. I mean, I've talked to you about this. A lot of people know Kyle Connor is still one of the most underrated players in this league. He's still one of the fastest players in this league as well. And what he's done up in Winnipeg, he's by no means the only reason they're crushing it. It's, as you said earlier in this episode, it's a whole team cohesiveness that everyone's stepping up and playing better than, better than they are expected to every single night. They're coming together and they're putting in that extra effort. Kucherov, I would make the argument the last few years he is too. Yes, he's been at the top of the Hart and Art Ross conversations every single time, but he's never the one that's everyone's like, oh yeah, it's him. Last year he certainly could have deserved and could have won that either award, I should say. And I think that Kucherov, what he's done out in Tampa without Stamkos, should definitely be given some light. Something I have to add to his year though, and I was watching their game last night with the Florida Panthers, and this is on November 12th. I was watching this, so a little after the end of the first month, and just they were talking about the Sasha Barkov and how there's really no two-way player right now, no two-way center in the league that's making an impact from a 200-foot stance like Barkov, aside from Hischier. Now Hischier has always been, since he's gotten here, a workhorse defensively on top of his playmaking abilities in the offensive zone. I think that this year, Bold Take, not only can he and will he be a finalist for the Selkie, but he can win that award. I mean, I'm sure if he's in there, Kopitar and the Barkovs are right there. Those two players have always been in that conversation. Even Sean Couturier, 5 to 6 years ago, was certainly in that conversation as well. They're both all of those names are two-way players. But this guy, Hischier, is showing his two-way play, and more importantly, this year than the last few, he's making a bigger impact offensively, which, as we know, is a really big factor into that award. So I'm really excited for the Devils. It sounds like Jack Hughes has kind of unlocked his the last 20% that we were waiting on. Jesper Bratt is cooking on all cylinders. Also another very underrated lefty winger who's very quick in the league as well. For him to have 10 goals, I love to see that. He was the first to get to 10 goals too. Loved it, loved it. So those two, and then our honorable mentions of Kucherov and Connor certainly deserve their respect for their first month of play. I'll move into the assist column. I'm going to cover our first player that had outstanding number of assists, and then I'll pass it over to you. First and foremost, we talk about him too much at this point. Cale Makar, he had 15 assists in his first month of play. Again, we're recording after, so their point totals are all different. But 15 assists in your first month of play for a team, mind you, that was not winning for a very long time in that October period. They were putting the puck in the net, but boy, were they getting scored on. Makar, enough has been said about his game. He is the best skater on the blue line in the league. He seems to be the best offensive-minded defenseman in the league year in and year out. Now, last year, obviously, Quinn Hughes won the Norris, but Makar was right on his ass. And every single year since Makar's made it in the league, he's made that known. So I got to give my flowers to him. And also another player I wanted to throw in there is Dylan Strome. Dylan Strome has more assists right now than he has games played. And I think that's something that is not easy. I think that's fascinating, and it's certainly a lot coming from a team, again, that we talked about earlier, who's not expected to be there. He's currently sitting at 22 points, 18 assists in 14 games played. I mean, Dylan Strome, if he's not cooking, Ovi and McMichael might not be, and Protus might not be. So I got to give my respect to them. But did I miss anyone else on the top assists of the first month there?
One other guy I'd like to add, I definitely think is worth mentioning. Um, Coming from the Vegas Golden Knights, Mark Stone putting up 14 assists in his first month of play. Mark Stone is another guy, I think, another center I think he could throw into that conversation with Sasha Barkov and Nico Hischier for best two-way centers in the league. This Vegas Golden Knights team is just not the same when Stone's not out there. And when he's performing at his best, they're a winning team. So absolutely love to see Stone putting up 14 assists in the month of October. But that actually moves us into our next category, which is the top points performers from the first month of play. And as you know, assists leaders usually carry this category, and that's what happened so far. We have Cale Makar and Mark Stone, each with 19 points through the month of October. Um, Great play from both of those guys, two leaders for each of their teams. Uh, Absolutely fantastic play. Makar is, as you know, arguably the best defenseman in the world right now. Mark Stone, absolutely fantastic two-way player who carries that Vegas Golden Knights team night in and night out. So it's great when he's able to stay healthy and play. Anybody else you'd like to mention for points for the month of October?
Um, yeah, actually, I do want to throw some love to Nathan McKinnon and Kirill Kaprizov. I just you said the stat 19 points each. I mean, we're just eclipsing 16 games played for both teams, and it's halfway through November. So to have 19 points through much less than 12 games even, right? Like that is fascinating. Great work out of both of those guys. Now, Kirill Kaprizov and McKinnon both coming out with 18 points in their last or in their first week. They're buzzing. Kirill Kaprizov is one of the biggest reasons that Minnesota Wild are doing well. Talking about Dylan Strome. Dylan Strome just scored a goal against Toronto as we speak. He continues his tear. But looking at Kaprizov and McKinnon's first month, those are the two players in the league that are really impactful for their teams. You take McKinnon out of Colorado, yeah, they probably win some, but he really is a massive driving piece. Even with Makar and even with Rantanen and some of their other great pieces, despite all their injuries they've been handling. But I mean, you could definitely make that argument in Minnesota. You take Kaprizov out of that equation. Is Boldy and Zuccarello and Eriksson Ek enough to make that team, and Faber, I should say, enough to make that team a juggernaut of a team? I don't think so. Kaprizov is really an impactful player. And when you look at a holistic impact that these players have on their lines and on their teams, I mean, Kaprizov is one of the best right now. And his team would not be anywhere near where they're at right now if he wasn't doing what he's capable of and what he's been doing and showing right now. So, got to show love. But I'll pass it over to you to finalize our plus minus player of the month. Some would maybe come at this with a little shocking face here. But who is our top plus minus player of the first month of October here?
So, a surprise to most people, myself included, but the top plus minus performer of the month is Giannis Moser. So, kudos to him. Hopefully, he's able to keep that up, and we'll be hearing more about him and his name. But
Definitely.
moving into moving into our last category, our top goalies of the month. This is a very exciting category. Um, just a couple goalies we'd like to mention out there. Uh, we have Jonathan Quick leading the league in save percentage through the month of October in 2024. Quite unexpected. Jonathan Quick putting up a 95.3 save percentage. I think this is great from a veteran who is now the backup for the Rangers. A little bit less games played and a little bit heavily favored by the solid team play in front of him, but still absolutely fantastic performance from one of the best goalies of both of our lifetimes so far. And the second guy I'd like to cover for top save percentage in October, another guy, kind of like Cale Makar, we can't stop mentioning him week after week. And quite frankly, I think his save percentage and performance through October is a bit more impressive than anyone else's. Lucas Dostal with the Anaheim Ducks putting up a 94.5 save percentage. Absolutely unreal from Dostal. I really cannot believe it whatsoever, especially with this Ducks team still not winning many games, but they're not losing by a lot and they're not giving up a lot. And Dostal's a ginormous reason for that. He's a young, small, quick goalie, and he's looking absolutely incredible. He might be the best young goalie in the league right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure, like, let's be honest, dude. Like, you could probably throw Igor, you could probably throw Hellebuck in there, you could probably throw Otter in there as well, for top players from a save percentage perspective. But from a statistical angle, Quick, yeah, he might not have played as much as Igor, but 953 is incredible. And we'll give respect to him. He obviously deserves that. We're actually going to cover one of his milestones he's approaching here coming up in a new segment of ours. But Lucas Dostal, I know we talk about the eye test, but those Anaheim Ducks do not look strong defensively in front of him. That team, say what you will, of course they're not winning, and yes, they're not losing by much, but that team, it's almost like he's their best player, and there's not a second best player. Like he is that keeping them afloat. And obviously they have talent. They have Leo Carlson. They have Zellweger. They have Minty Yukov. They have the Zegras. They have the McTavishes and the Strome. I'll go on about their roster, but that team does not look good at all in front of Dostal. And coming in to kind of take on some of the load from the John Gibson injury, my gosh, you're right. He is the best, if not certainly top tier young talent in the league in the crease. If not one of the best, he's one. He's top three for sure. So Dostal is a really fun goalie. He's not even a very large goalie, too. So for a team to be not playing well defensively in front of him, not putting the puck in the net offensively, and for him to be dominant in that crease, it really just shows even more, right? You got 945 out of Dostal in the first month, which is so impressive. But you have 953 out of Quick, but you're talking about almost polar opposite teams. Say what you will about the Rangers' success as of late. They've kind of had some blunders, but oh my goodness, the defense and the offense in front of Quick is night and day compared to what Dostal has. So gotta throw respect to him. He's made our top line of the week a few times. Continue to follow us on social media where we'll be posting that every week, as well as some cool player spotlights. We're getting some graphic generation taken care of, and we're kind of streamlining that process now to provide you with more kind of breaking news and breaking stat breakdowns for everyone to kind of take in throughout the week in between our episodes. But let's move on to the next section of our top goalies of the first month. The next section is based off of goals against average. So we're just going to break down two players. You covered him, Jonathan Quick. He has a 1.51 in the first month of hockey in October. Again, when you have a high save percentage, oftentimes that comes with a good goals against average. But 151 is very impressive. The first player though that we're gonna have to put, it's a little more impressive actually, is Freddie Anderson. Freddie Anderson out in Carolina has put up a 1.48 goals against average in the first month of hockey. That team, say what you will with this offseason and losing Gensel and losing Nason and not really bolstering up that team aside from bringing in like Roslovic and a few others, or Roslovic. To me, Freddie Anderson, as I covered last episode, he looks very calm in net, and it doesn't matter if he's been scored on a bunch. if their team doesn't even have a shot, if he's just been standing on the guy looks just like a machine. And when you're goalie, I know you talk about mentality wise, if you're in your own head, oh my god, that can destroy your game. This guy mentally seems as sound as it gets, and Freddie Anderson seems to really be helping these Carolina Hurricanes kind of win a few games there. And of course, their offense is buzzing, and they don't necessarily need the brick wall that they have. But it certainly helps out there in Carolina. So we'll turn it over to you for top players or top goalies from a win perspective of the first month. And then we're going to cover a new segment here.
One little thing I'd like to add with the previous statistic, goals against average. In this case, it does show, but most times goals against average leaders are goaltenders that are on the best teams in the league, and in this case, it shows Carolina and New York both having great months in October. But for wins, Connor Hellebuck leading the league so far with 7 wins in October. That Jets team is just absolutely rolling. And the other guy I'd like to mention, Vasilevsky with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Many still consider him to be the best goaltender in the world. I might be one of those people, and even though his other stats aren't looking so great, it's the wins that really matter.
Yeah, especially without a Stammer and Sergachev.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, he lost
yeah.
his captain and best goal scorer, certainly best playmaker, or one of them, and one of the better blue liners on that team too. And boy, oh boy, he looks kind of spry and just like his old self. You know, last year he kind of like he wasn't growing his game as much. We hadn't seen him on the incline as much. He was more on like a plateau there, but this year he's out hot. And of course, Hellebuck. They're 14-1. So 7 games with 7 wins in the first month. Yeah. It's pretty impressive considering they've broken the record for best start in any NHL season for any NHL franchise ever. 14-1 is pretty impressive. So, uh, switching over, we're excited to talk about our new segment here. It's our milestone watch. So, really, what we want to do is kind of break down some of the milestones that are coming up here. Actually, there were a few that were passed, and we'll cover those two at the end. But some milestones to really look out for as a hockey fan. These are players and exciting stat lines that are coming up hot. Certainly could be passed and accomplished before the end of the season, and if not this season, certainly in the next season. So worth noting for sure. I'll put it kind of like a notice if there's something that's really close. But the first and foremost, I think everyone's been talking about this, the Ovi and Gretzky goal record. So Gretzky's goal record, it's very impressive. He has 894 all-time goals, and Ovechkin, as of the 13th of November, again, he hasn't scored yet tonight, but as of the 13th, as we're recording, he has 863 goals. He is currently 32 goals out from passing the great one as the best goal scorer in the history of hockey. Now, I, like many, believe he's not going to stop until he does, and I think he's already made that clear. Now, I'm going to turn this over to you. He's buzzing right now. Do you think this happens this year? Do you think this happens next season? Because he's on pace to do it this year. But what are your thoughts?
Though he is on pace to do it this year, 42 goals is a lot to ask for the grade 8. But with this pace that he's on, I could see it happening this season, but I do definitely agree with you. He will not retire until that record is his. If it does bleed over into next season, I think it's definitely going to be accomplished within that first 10, 20 game stretch.
Mm-hmm.
But absolutely incredible start from Ovi. I know last year he started out a little bit slower on the scoring start, but this is just incredible, putting up a goal per game so far. So love to see that from him. Hope he's able to keep it up. And it's also helping him get to another record, not a record, but a plateau.
A
He's
milestone.
currently, what's up?
I said a milestone.
Well, yes, milestone, sorry. uh, he's also currently about to reach another career milestone, being that it's 1,600 points. He's 32 away from that. So 32 away from both the all-time NHL goal record and from 1,600 points. Most likely going to hit 1,600 points first, but he's scoring at a goal a game pace, so we never know. Yeah.
That's
Another
crazy.
great milestone, kind of one we want to rope in with Ovi is Crosby. They go hand in hand with each other. And speaking with Obi's goals, it's fair to mention Crosby. He's currently 2 goals away from reaching 600. As we both know, Crosby's been more the playmaker, two-way guy his whole career. So, though they're quite even in points, Ovechkin definitely has the lead for goals.
Mm-hmm. I also think Ovechkin's been, he doesn't miss many games. Crosby has certainly lost quite a few with some of the surgeries and injuries he's had. That's really exciting, right? Like it's kind of like an era of hockey on the sunset of their career, right? Like this is the era we grew up in: the Patrick Kanes, the Sidney Crosbys, the Ovechkins, the even Patrice Bergerons, and he's no longer on the in the league. We can go on and on. All these players, I know they just they celebrated Pavel Datsuk. All these players we grew up with, they're kind of on their way out. But last year's performance by Sidney Crosby and what Ovi's doing this year is showing that those two are there's greatness and then there's insane, and they're on that level. I mean, to be performing the way Ovi's performing right now, for Crosby to have performed the way he performed last year at his age, it's unfathomable. I mean, nobody really can be doing that. I mean, few in the entire history of any professional sport can be good, if not dominant, in their sport at that age. Love to see it. I'm actually bullish that it might happen this year. I actually think that Ovi's going to eclipse the record. I did not to start the year, not at all, actually. And I'm praying that he does. But being that I now live down in DC, yeah, I'm going to be buying some tickets to the end of the season. I don't care if it's away. I want to be buying some tickets towards the back half of the season. Probably the last 10 games, I'm going to buy a few home games because whether he's on pace by Christmas or not, right now I saw the pace is like he could break it by the end of February. Like the 25th of February, as of this morning, he's on pace to break it. Again, if he keeps this up, I would be superhuman, and we'd actually have to test his body to make sure what the hell's going on because this is so impressive. But if he's actually on pace for breaking it in February, let's be real. There's still a month and a half left of hockey after that. So even if he digresses, which most, if not everyone's expecting, it's hard to perform at this level for any age, right? If he digresses a little bit, that still gives him a month and a half of hockey left to eclipse it. I'm a firm believer that I want him to play next year, even if he eclipses it this year. I want that goal record to be stretched out because we've been talking about, oh, he'll own it until Austin Matthews breaks it. Oh, he'll own it for however long it takes Matthews to get up there. Well, okay, but maybe Ovi's got a chip on his shoulder. We know he does to make that harder. Not just, oh, I eclipsed it. I broke it by a goal. Let's kind of hang him up after this season. He's got contracted until the end of next season. He's under contract for the Capitals. I would love to see him break the record and make a 15 to 20 goal kind of gap because obviously, if you're a record holder, that's one really tough record to break. It's still a long shot for Matthews to get close, let alone break that. But, Ovechkin, he deserves it. And we know he'll be passing it, whether it's this year or next. So, moving on, another elite talent in the league, Connor McDavid, is actually just outside of 1,000 points. He we we don't need to talk about his skill. We know he's one of the best, if not the best, to ever put on skates. He is, from a skill aspect or perspective, no one's even eclipsing him. And even though he's been in the league this long, people are still in awe. And I mean, people are drooling over his game because of how good he is. Uh, he is right now currently at 995 points. So that's 5 points away from eclipsing 1,000 points. Um, that's impressive. I don't think anyone breaks Gretzky's point record, but boy, oh boy, if someone can, it might be McDavid. I'm not going to put that out there that he will, but if anyone could, it could be McDavid. And the last few seasons of his dominance really shows it. And then the next one, and I'll pass it over to you to kind of finish up some of our milestones here. Um, it's actually from a coaching angle. So both Paul Maurice and Lindy Ruff are right outside the 900 wins mark. We know how important it is to get, 100, 200, 500, then 600 wins as a coach. These guys are eclipsing 900 wins. These are coaches that have been around for a very long time. Paul Maurice winning the cup last year. We all know what respect he brought to the Winnipeg area, how he's done down in Florida. Lindy Ruff in his time out in Buffalo, coming into the New Jersey Devils organization, and now back in Buffalo. Lindy Ruff is currently sitting at 871 wins, and Paul Maurice is 880. So Maurice has a little lead on Ruff and might be playing with a stronger roster at the moment. I'm really happy for both of these coaches. They are ones that honestly our entire life we've had in the league. We've learned a lot. I've loved to watch the teams and systems that they've built. Um, I couldn't be more excited for both of them to eclipse 900 wins. Do I think they make it happen this year? I do believe Maurice eclipses. Do I think Ruff makes that's going to be tough. I'm going to go out and say boldly that they're both going to get there by the end of this season, but it might be a tough one. So I'll turn it back to you. I don't know if you had any thoughts or kind of comments to add to that coaching milestone there, and then we'll wrap it up with some of our goaltending milestones because I know there's quite a few.
No, not much to add. I thought you covered it really well. The only thing I have to say is, though I hate the Florida Panthers, I absolutely love Paul Maurice. He is absolutely hell of a coach. Wish he was the coach of the Bruins. Great guy, better coach, brings the best out of his players night in, night out. But yes, like you said, moving forward, we do have some goaltending milestones. Jonathan Quick is currently 5 wins away from 400 career wins. Absolutely incredible. 400 wins is a whole lot in the NHL. Not many goalies are able to get that, so excited for Quick to be able to hit that milestone most likely this season. And a couple other goalies looking to break win milestones this year. We have Vasilevsky, who is currently at 299, looking to get to 300 soon. A couple other guys right around that mark is Freddie Anderson at 298. Semyon Varlamov with the New York Islanders at 287. We'll see if he's able to break that one. He splits a lot of his time with Ilya Sorokin. And then we have Connor Hellebuck at 281. So I can see Vasilevsky, Anderson, Hellebuck all definitely eclipsing 300 wins this season. Varlamov is the only one I'm kind of iffy about, just solely due to his amount of playing time and the team that plays in front of him.
Definitely. No, I like that. It's interesting when you compare 300 wins, right? Like look at Varlamov and how long he's been in the league, and then comparing to like Vasilevsky, Hellebuck, and Anderson, who probably roughly the same ballpark of time they joined. It's just really interesting to see how that's played out with like Vasilevsky and Hellebuck being Vezina-esque players every single year of their career. How much that's almost caught up and certainly will surpass Varlamov in that, and I do see both of them getting to that 300 wins mark before him. Now, it's certainly exciting. We'll be following all these milestones. I want to cover two quick ones that did actually get I mean, they were reached milestones that were achieved. First and foremost, it's up in Winnipeg. Scott Arniel, he's made our coach of the week a number of times. He is a very, very strong, impactful coach behind the bench there. He actually was the first coach in the history of the NHL to start off with an 8-0 record. Um, that's pretty cool, pretty impressive, especially considering where people had the Jets this season. Um, I'm I'm so excited for the Winnipeg Jets and what they're doing, and it's almost fascinating to watch what they have up there and the buzz that is on the ice and the product that they're putting out there. And then another big one cannot be slept on. Crosby just eclipsed last week 14,838. Now, since then, he has more, but he has 14,838 face-off wins, which gives him first all-time in the history of hockey for face-off wins. I mean, our entire life, there's been like a few people who've been known for strong face-offs. Crosby, our entire life in his entire career, has been one of those players. Love to hear that. Hopefully, in the next season to 3 seasons, he continues to kind of pad that milestone and break that, or I should say, make distance between him and number two there. But I thought that was interesting. So let's go into our wrap up, which is kind of the bold takes and strategies and bets for the upcoming week ahead. I'll go through some of our old takes in the scoreboard here. Currently, I am sitting in the lead, coming from worst to first. Here are our old takes. So, Panz, you had the Predators to beat the Avalanche on the 11th of November, and Stammer to get a goal to score. Unfortunately, both of those didn't happen. Stammer did not score, and the Avs took down the Preds. So you got a fat goose egg for the second week there, bud. And our producer Justin had Bedard to score 2+ points and the Hawks to win over the Wild on the 10th of November. Unfortunately, Bedard didn't have a single point in that game, but the Hawks did take down the Wild. So he's getting a point there. And then my take actually happened last night on the 12th of November. I had Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers to both score a point and the Jets to take a win over the New York Rangers. Oh my goodness, was that a fun, exciting game. Both Connor and Ehlers did have a point. I believe Connor had multiple points, and they did win over the Rangers. So I got 2 points there. The overall standings stand at myself. I have 5 points. Panz has 3 points, and Justin is tied with me for 5 points on the season. So fun, tight matchup here. Panz, you are right on the outside looking in. There's no reason you can't be back there next week, and it's going to be a tight one throughout the season. So I'll pass it over to you to cover your take of the upcoming week, and then I'll cover Justin and I's, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so hoping to get back into the heat of things here. Honestly, my take, I don't know if it'll definitely hit. This is more one that I would love to see rather than I know this is going to happen. But on November 18th, Anaheim versus Dallas, I have both Leo Carlson and Logan Stankoven to get a point. Two young guys who are really flourishing so far in their young NHL careers, and I'm really excited to see what they're capable of this season.
I love that. I mean, I know I'll be watching that game. They both look fun to watch. I mean, it'll be an uphill battle for sure for Anaheim, but I mean, at this point, what matchup isn't? Um, so we'll see there. Justin, who was unable to join us on this episode here today, sent in his take for the week. And this was an interesting one because I knew that Freddie Anderson's injured, but it actually involves the Carolina Hurricanes. He has the Canes losing back-to-back this weekend versus Ottawa and St. Louis Saturday and Sunday. So that would be, oh boy, we're filming on the 13th. It'd be the 16th and 17th here of November. He has them losing back to back. This would be an interesting one because to me, those are two games that they should win. Whether Kochetkov or Anderson's in net, or even a knee bug, those teams are not as strong as the Canes have been out the gate. That's all I'm going to say there. So we'll see. We'll be following that. And to wrap up my take, love the guy out of Philly. We've talked about him enough. I bet a bunch of money on him to hit to 60 points this year. I have Matvey Michkov and Dylan Strome to get 1+ points each in their games on the 18th. So this will be next week, but Washington wraps up. Sorry, I should say they match up against Utah, and Philly matches up against Colorado on November the 18th. I mean, we talked enough about Dylan Strome. He just got, I think, a point, if not two, already this game. They're not even halfway through the game right now as we're filming, and Michkov. I mean, he looked great in that game back from being sat. Say what you will about the Torch situation and why he was sat. I disagree with it, but Michkov is the talent that they're looking for out in Philly, and he's not sitting there as a not wanting to be impactful player or not making that impact. His impact's there. So I can't wait to watch both Strome and Michkov kind of lead their teams there, and we'll be following up. So we'll soon be posting some leaderboard graphics on our social media, so you can follow along as well as kind of again give us shit, especially the person who might be in last place or falling behind week after week. It'll be fun to kind of poke fun at them and maybe put an internal bet with Panz and I on that. Other than that, continue to follow us, continue to DM us. We get a lot of questions and comments, and we do look forward to providing you with some exciting new like interactive segments. We're going to be having some interviews with some very very impactful people in the hockey world, especially in the league, the National League here. Really come the next we'll say 2025, come the turn of the year, we have a lot of exciting new initiatives as as Cat Wizard as a brand starts to grow. So foundation is being set. We're really proud of all of our success and progress. I couldn't thank you enough, Pans. You are a hell of a buddy here. You're a hell of a teammate, and we've really started to cook up something special here. So wanted to thank you as always. Love doing this with you. Love taking the time every day, but also on our recording days, chatting it up, talking shop, talking hockey with you. But hey, if there's anything that you want to see out of us, any weird takes, anything we missed, let us know. DM us, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We'll be posting this again every week, so tune in for the updates around the league. But yeah, we'll wrap this up, Pans. Thanks again, and we'll be connecting here later this week, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you. Everything you do is greatly appreciated. Um, Absolutely love doing this. My favorite part of the week, each and every week. And yeah, just like you said, uh, keep interacting with us. We love to bring you guys whichever information you want or whatever you guys like. Just please let us know. We'll try to keep bringing you an entertaining show.
Well,
So, like you
yeah.
said, we'll do this again next week. But an absolute pleasure, brother.
All right, buddy. Well, much love, peace. We will chat it up soon.